Hello, good evening and welcome to the midweek fix by the LFC Daytrippers. Chris Brack looked like he was about to say something there and he realised we were after starting. Anyway, I'm your host Keith Lunke. I'm joined tonight by Chris, by Gar and by Paul. And before I get to the lads, I just want to say that this show, the midweek fix, is brought to you by footballprizes.co.uk. Great website. Anyone that's not looked on it yet, they raffle off or they do draws for signed shorts, signed and framed shorts, all certified and all. So the Liverpool prize this week is a signed and framed Fabinho jersey, which is great. It's £4.95 for the ticket. Tickets limited to 99. So look, that's on until Friday the 22nd at 7:30 is when that one closes. It's a good one to get into. Every week there's a different Liverpool one, but there's other jerseys and all. There's Leeds, there's a Daniel Pedence from Wolves one up at the moment. They've great stuff on there. If that's the sort of thing, I'm looking at Gar's wall there, it's the sort of thing that Gar is into. But it's a great website and it's really something, if you're into that sort of stuff, for a £5, you have a chance of winning some really, really excellent stuff. So I would highly recommend you go over and have a look at that. So anyway, back to the lads. Chris, what were you going to say before I rudely interrupted you by starting the pod?
I was mid-yawn.
Starts a few minutes ago on, lads.
It's a cracker show, this. I'm mid-yawn.
What can I say? It's a slow start. We've all been watching Chelsea against Leicester, which has been a bit of a snooze fest. Look, lads, the midweek fix, we've got a lot of fixtures on this weekend, but I'm not going to focus too much on them. I want to look at how the weekend went, and I want to get your thoughts realistically on the Liverpool Man U game at the weekend, how you feel it went out, who you feel will be the happier of the sides, and the ramifications of that result and how you feel it went. So Chris, I'll start with you. Seems as though we've picked on you already. How did you think it went at the weekend, Chris? Was it a game that were you expecting more from Liverpool, or were you expecting more from the other shower, or what? How do you think it went?
I was expecting us to win, to be honest. There was a lot of similarities to last year, other than the fact that we actually scored last year. I thought first half an hour we looked decent. I thought we probably missed opportunities, which is a bit of a concern. And then, look, they played how I thought they played. Sit deep, hit us on the break, which how a lot of teams play against us. So it's not new. It's not clever. But in the end, it felt like a game where both sides had gone, don't lose. It felt like they were both in that boat of do not lose. I think we've been in that boat because of the last 5 results haven't been great, which has led to this hyperbole of negativity. I'm not saying everything's rosy and it'll be grand, but I think some of the hysteria I've seen around the last 5-6 games is it feels a bit much for me. But the issue we've got, unfortunately, everything in context. People say it's an excuse, but it is how it is. We've got our right fullback is woefully out of form. All the front three are all out of form at the same time. Yeah. And you've got Thiago coming back, finding his feet, who I thought he was good for the first half an hour, showed what he can do. Last killer balls weren't quite coming off, but I thought he was quite quiet after that. And I think that was more legs and getting used to the fact he's not played for 2 months. But he's surrounded by a midfield that isn't the midfield that you'd expect to play with. And then you've got two centre mids at centre back. Now, they're all some of those are avoidable, some of those aren't. Because the problem we've got is I think a lot of the reserve players we've got at the moment, Klopp either doesn't fancy them, or again they're coming back to fitness, so you can't rely on them to throw in. So it's been like a perfect storm. I mean, if you flick it the other way around, if we were top of the league now, going to Old Trafford, United were out of form when they were playing Paul Pomper and McTominay at centre back, and we came away with a happy 0-0. No one would be happy with this. We'd all be going, "What the fuck's going on here? You should be taking this advantage." And they had the chances. Alisson made a couple of good saves, but they were saves that I would expect a keeper of Alisson standing to make. Not saying they were easy saves, but there are saves where I think if he got in, you would look at the keeper a bit and go, I'd expect him to save it. Like I'd expect the head to save the ones he saved. So I think it ended up being a lot of hype and a bit of a damp squid, really, which in fairness, Paul did call on the last show about it. He thought it'd be a bit of a dour game. I think a lot of the hype ball is because we're on a poor run of 4 or 5 games, but as it stands now, we're 4 points off top. It's not great, and if it keeps on like this, then obviously you're going to be further away, and then you are going to be out of it. But at the moment, four games or so with 20 games to go, I think there's a little bit of perspective and a little bit of take a deep breath needed.
Yeah, it's a very good point, Paul. I'll come to you next. As Chris said, there's a lot of panicking going on there, and there's still a long way to go in the race. It's a compact, compressed top of the table, and we've just seen Leicester have just beaten Chelsea there to put them top. There's going to be a lot of changes up there, and some of the reaction is as if we've thrown it away, we've blown it. What do you make of the result at the weekend and the standing that we have now after it's all settled down?
Well, as kind of Chris alluded to, and if you watch the Friday forecast, that game went exactly the way that I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be boring, attritional, and I wouldn't have been surprised, which is kind of what happened to a larger extent, where teams got to an hour and went, that'll do, yeah, fine, okay, you're not losing, I'm not losing, we're all good here, let's just, the unwritten rule, and let's get through it, and if you can nick one, fine. I mean, in terms of the reaction, there's always going to be overreaction because it's 2021. That's what happens. It's like basically, Orange Man doesn't win a contest. So basically, we now have government buildings getting trashed. So basically, like on the LFC end of things, on the Liverpool end of things, it kind of almost feels the same, where it's like everyone's looking for something to be outraged about. And I think Chris is quite right, where it does feel a little bit over the top. But I do have to say that I do think some of the concerns and some of the criticisms are merited. And the reason why, and Gav has a great point about this, which I've made to a number of people, and a lot of people haven't really got onto it, despite us talking about this on multiple shows. The main reason why Trent Alexander-Arnold is not in form at the moment is because he hasn't got Jordan Henderson behind him, mopping up for him and doing his dirty work for him. What we're actually seeing at the moment is Trent, where he has to actually defend, and he's going to get exposed for his defensive shortcomings. So unfortunately, what's going on at the moment is that there's a woeful lack of confidence because our two best centre-backs aren't centre-backs at all, and that has thrown the entire rest of the team forward of that and to the side of that completely out of balance. So the reason why we're now trying to almost walk it into the net is because we've lost that little bit of confidence, we've lost that little bit of directness, because we don't have the people that we normally have in the middle of the pitch driving it forward with an amazing amount of directness. So when you take all of that into consideration and the lack of depth from the bench, which obviously wasn't addressed for reasons of finances and stuff like that, and the situation that we found ourselves in with the pandemic, it just creates this perfect storm, as Chris was saying. And United don't have the quality to really hurt us at Anfield. I think you did see it's more to do with, rather than United surging forward, it's more to do with us dropping off. But let's face it, having had the last 3 years we've had, there was going to be an inevitable drop-off at some point. It's unsustainable. And the fact of the matter is that it could be a lot worse. We could have lost the last 5. I think, it's reason to be concerned on some fronts, and there is things to address, but let's keep it in context and let's keep it in perspective and stay as calm as we possibly can. And then we can start to really address those things, and we can start to come back from here. We're nowhere near out of it, but obviously it's not a fantastic situation.
Yeah, Stevie LFC doesn't like me sugarcoating it and says we're throwing it away. I love Stevie. Stevie always, gets the extremes when we drop a point or don't play well. And look, Stevie, I'm not trying to sugarcoat it, but I said on the Fatback 4 the other night, if you're ever going to drop points and go through a slump, it's better to do it now and still be in with a chance rather than do it. People are talking about Gav being on about talking about Brendan Rodgers. Brendan Rodgers is a prime example of someone who sort of fluffed it in the run-in, and you don't want to do that. So look, we're not out of it by any stretch of the imagination. We're still in with a chance. Gar, I'll come to you. Something that Paul touched on there, and I think it's an excellent point, and we keep banging this drum. Losing players out of positions, Jordan Henderson not being there to do the donkey walk, it's having an impact all over the pitch. And that's not Jordan Henderson is this, that, or the other. It's a lot of players. You're losing Fabinho from the midfield. You're losing Henderson from the midfield. Trent can't play his game. Salah isn't playing his game. For this to work, they all have to be on top. And we've just all hit the wall at the same time. How do we get through this?
I think there's a part of it. If you look at Man City, Keith, Pep has changed it up a couple of times in the last few games, and it's starting to work for him. He's played De Bruyne as a number 9, and Paul's touched on something there, and it's huge to what we've done over the last few years is balance. You've got 2 fullbacks there now that are not playing that high up the field anymore. So you've got 3 forward players now who are overtaking touches, who are looking left and right to see if there is that that support to each side, or running into a corner, making an overlap and run, making a fullback think about it. It's not happening anymore, lads. So therefore, we're giving sides that time to reset, to get back into shape. The teams we've played against, a lot of 4-4-2 sides, they're slightly different. The weekend had 2 home midfielders, so you give them that they just drop back into shape, and it's very, very hard to break down. No matter what Thiago passes played through, it's very, very, very hard to break that system down. We've seen, sides do it to us over years, and we've been lucky in games where we've got penalties. And I will also add to it, lads, we're too nice. Mane goes through again the weekend. He has a tug on him. If that's any other player, lads, they're going down.
Yeah.
There's been too many times. I could count about 5 or 6 times within the last 10 games where we've had chances to, let's be honest, everyone does it. You have to have a bit of snide in that attacking sense. And I don't like saying it, Chris, but it's cheating. And
it
it's
is.
done all the
It is.
time.
But I do think some of our players, though, and people say this is silver foil hat situation, is the likes of Salah and Mane, when they do go down under not much pressure or a slight touch, it's the press story for the week. Yeah. Whereas certain other players fall over, it doesn't. We don't get him. I mean,
but Chris, we have to do it. We have to make a referee think that we're not even going to referees and challenging them on decisions anymore.
Well,
we're too bloody nice. We don't surround refs and go, bam, come on, referee point, go to the VR. We don't.
You had Michael Oliver admitting that last week about the Virgil van Dijk thing. I didn't know there was a foul because they weren't looking for a card. Players didn't have to look for a card. I get what he's about saying,
but he said that. But if you watch it back, as soon as it's in, you see Henderson running his face.
Yeah.
So to say they weren't shouting for it, I said Henderson's in his face. Yeah. So again, it's a bullshit argument that the refs come out with. It's like, they didn't ask for a card. They shouldn't fucking have to. Yeah. But I think with Salah and Mane, they're actually crap at diving as well. Yeah. I think Grizz pointed out perfect. They're crap at it. They actually probably need some lessons because when they do it and they are fouled, they still don't get the bloody penalty. So you're like, I mean, let's face it, Harry Maguire was better at diving than Salah. I've never seen that was the funniest thing I've seen in my life.
You've brought that up, right? It's a good point. Like that was a ridiculous thing, And people are saying, the ref is looking. The linesman is literally straight at that, and he can't see that. Salah doesn't have his hands on Maguire. Maguire's snailing, backing into him and dragging him to the ground. And there's no
Salah has no leverage from his hips to where you might as well say Maguire's bum is going straight into him. He's no leverage to bump him to push him off balance. So therefore, you can actually see he just feels it and goes. You can see it straight away.
Yeah,
and they're going out here, lads. I give up.
There's no common sense.
It's part of a refereeing and also media bias against foreign players, quite frankly. Like you were saying with Salah and Mane, it's like, they go down and get a pen. That's all you'd hear about for a week is how awful it is, and all these foreigners coming over here ruining our game. And then basically Harry Kane gets called a football genius for nearly snapping a player's neck every week with what he's doing.
One of them incidents on Sunday, wasn't it? Where
Shaqiri, wasn't it?
Yeah, I saw that Shaqiri. That's the exact thing I'm thinking about.
He doesn't even move into him. It happens so quick, and he just comes over the top of him, the defender, and he just goes around, and you're going to yourself, if that's Kane, he's getting a free kick.
But if that's Kane just falls to the ground, where the Shaqiri just stays there, and the United player comes over the top of him. It's madness. It's like as if the referees, and I've said this multiple times, the standard of refereeing has just fallen through the floor. They're gutless, they're cowards, they're afraid to do it now. VAR isn't helping them, and they've made that themselves. They've made that as a they're afraid to do anything with it now.
May I have a little pet rant for 30 seconds on this, because this is a bit of a pet subject of mine, and the reason why, and I'm not because I'm dressed like a referee tonight either, a space cadet referee. No, basically what it is that the league referees, the PGMOL, whatever it's called, right, whatever combination of letters it is the only organisation out of all the major leagues that are actually owned by the league. The referees actually work for the league and not the FA, and that is a tremendous, huge conflict of interest. And it's pretty much an unwritten rule that a lot of these refereeing decisions are happening because essentially the league want controversy because it adds ratings. It's the modern era equivalent of like clickbait. Basically, you see an article that gets you outraged online and you click on it and you share it because angry people click more. And at the end of that, somebody's making a lot of money. So if there's more controversy, then there's more eyeballs on the product every month. Now, on top of that, you read books like Jeff Winter's book, you see Clattenburg's comments last week. There is an inherent conflict of interest. And adding on to that, when was the last time you saw an English referee from the Premier League officiating in a major international tournament or in a final? There's been no one there since Howard Webb in 2010. The refereeing standard in this country since 2010 has deteriorated to a point where UEFA and FIFA now no longer bother inviting our referees to international tournaments. That's a big problem, and it goes really, really deep into the structure of the game.
Yeah, it's a damning indictment of it all, right. Kieran Thorne is throwing a super chat in there. Thanks very much, Kieran. It's a fact defenders don't have to think about defending. Makeshift defenders do. This is the whole purpose of natural positions. And Gar, I'll come back to you on this. It's an excellent point, isn't it? Because if you have Fabinho in there with people say, "Oh, put in Phillips or put in Reece Williams," well, then Fabinho has to nearly babysit them through the game as well. Yeah. And he's not a natural centre back himself, so the knock-on effect is all over the place. That's why if you have a fit Matip there, it makes us look that bit more solid, and Fabinho can concentrate on his own game without having to worry about others. And we've too many players that are having to overthink it, aren't we, in positionally?
Yeah, and we often have this argument about people being pigeonholed, it's through development. Oh, this like it's pigeonholed as a defensive midfielder or, a winger or so on and so forth. We never really come across that centre mid that has to drop back. Only in later years. In the past, it doesn't really happen anymore, Keith, to be honest. Do centre mids drop back to centre half? It's very rare now you see it. But it does. You have to readapt. Your mindset is totally different. You have to play a different game. You have to concentrate in an offside trap. You have to probably play beside players that you're going to have to babysit a bit more. Let's be honest. You're going to have to babysit Trent because, in my opinion, he struggles to defend. So it's a completely different mindset. It's a completely different psychological side of your game. You have to really change your mindset in regards to your position. So it is. I can imagine for them guys, it's the speed of that game. You can imagine the adaptation is very, very hard.
Yeah. It really is. It really is. Something that I want to come on to, leading on from that, lads, are comments that were made by two ex-Reds in the media over the last day or so. Didi Hamann and John Barnes were criticising Thiago and his role and his suitability to this Liverpool team, saying essentially he's not a Liverpool player. Paul, what have you seen these comments and what do you make of them?
I've seen these comments and I can kind of understand where they come from. I saw Didi Hamann's comments. I've not seen Digger's comments. But in terms of... I can see where there's a stylistic change, right? Because he's very evocative of a Xavi Alonso, that type of thing. Everything kind of goes through him. So I understand where there's a concern. I mean, I've got a little bit of a concern myself that, at moments we might have to become something of a one-man team with him in the starting lineup, because he's that type of player that everything's got to go through him if he's going to have an impact on the game. And I worried about that when Coutinho was at his peak. And I'll be honest with you, I worried about it when Gerrard was at his peak, because effectively, if he didn't do it, nobody else did. And you can see a lot of players are passing to him And it was in moments on the weekend, it was a bit sideways and back, and the passes weren't coming off for reasons Chris was talking about, fitness, fitting into the shape. Anfield debut as well, don't forget, first time he's ever played at home. So there were a lot of mitigating circumstances about that. But this is another reason why the centre-back issue just dominates everything. Because if you think about the lack of directness, you think about how we would play if Virgil and Joe were fully fit. Yeah. We play that line 10 yards further up the pitch for starters, and we squeeze teams and we effectively suffocate the life out of teams. We pen them in, we overwhelm them with numbers in their own final third, because we can get away with it because we've got one of the quickest centre-backs in the world in Joe Gomez, and we've got the best centre-back in the world in terms of recovery pace and being able to deal with situations in Virgil. So what we're actually seeing is not the drawbacks of Thiago, we're actually seeing the ongoing problems of a lack of our preferred centre-half lineup, because we're playing the game 10-15 yards further back, so we're playing in front of teams, which actually makes it much harder for the likes of Thiago to find those killer passes.
Indeed it does. Chris, something that Paul has sort of touched on there is the knock-on effect of not having your main players there, and I think that's a detriment to the whole team, but certainly to Thiago, because if you, as Paul said, if we have Virgil van Dijk and we have Joe Gomez, or look, we have Virgil van Dijk plus other centre-back in there, we're 10 yards further up, as Paul has alluded to. The fullbacks are 20-30 yards further up, right? So Robertson and Trent are nearly up on the wings because the recovery is there. Thiago is not playing in a holding midfield role in this. So, you know, he's come in, he's smashed up in the second game. He's back, he's out longer than people hoped for, longer than people expected, and it's going to take him a while to come in. But is it too early to be judging him based on a few appearances in a patched up squad that's going through a bit of a rut at the moment?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I think the article I read in the summer was the plan, all being well, was to play Henderson and Fabinho as a 2 and play Thiago in front of them. So more of a 10, which is what he used to play for Bayern before he dropped back to more of an 8. Reason being is they thought that would be the way of giving us a clever passing range from the middle, as well as the two fullbacks. And you could see that there's a couple of passes he's done where they didn't quite go off, but you can see where he's coming from, what he's meant to do. But like you said, because we're so deep, I actually think putting him in a 10 role is way better, because then you'll get him 5-6 yards further forward, which is probably what he needs at the moment, just to help him. Also protect his legs a little bit, because he's still finding his fitness, and I think that's I think that is a thing. I mean, I've got to be careful what I say this, because otherwise this will be clipped up and everyone will get excited. He's possibly getting a little bit overhyped, and what I mean by that is, as soon as he does anything, see what Thiago did, he's brilliant. And this is not me saying he's not brilliant. He is. He's a stunning player. I've seen him play for years before Liverpool. He's brilliant. But I think everyone just needs to calm down a little bit. This is a guy who's come back from, I'm surprised he played in this season, because to be honest, when I first saw the tackle, I thought he broke his knee. I generally thought that's it. That's another VVD. That's another one out for the season. So I think the other thing is you can tell he's finding his game. So I actually think if we could play, say, Henderson, Wijnaldum as a 2 and play him in front, I think it also saves his legs a little bit while he builds his fitness up. And I think he's playing 10 yards further forward. The slide rule passes he could put through to a Mane or a Salah is probably what they would love to have. They haven't had that for years. And actually that might get them back into a bit of form. So it may just be a slight formation tweak until we get, if we get another centre-back in, or if we have a Matip and a Fabinho fit for the 2 games that Matip's fit for, then we can go from there, really. But the problem we've got at the moment is, because we're not playing well, everything's a crisis. And I would say certain articles have come out and certain opinion pieces are now coming out because they know about dry fury and they know how much it'll wind people up. Whereas if we'd won 4 of the last 5, most of these stories that are coming out, most of the interviews that players have done, people won't give a shit about. It's just the way of the world at the moment. In terms of Haman, though, I don't know what his problem is. Ever since he's retired, he seems to have a bee in his bonnet about Liverpool. He wanted Klopp sacking at one point. He's just there for attention, Haman. He's a bit like Carragher now. I kind of zone out to him.
I think Didi Hamann, when Klopp first came in, wasn't Didi Hamann hawking himself for a job on the coaching staff, and I think he thought he was going to get brought into the backroom team. And ever since then, he's just been fairly bitter. Now, I'd be a huge fan of Didi Hamann. He's one of my favourite players when he played for Liverpool. but he doesn't have to talk a lot of guff when he does talk. That's my dishwasher finishing there, lads. Just give it a second, let that little beat.
That's the Havana.
Yeah, I didn't know it was on.
I didn't know it was a news he was on the show, Keith.
Yeah, well, just making a guest appearance, it's another sponsor. But no, Gar, I'll come to you. Chris says it there. If you push Thiago 10 yards further up, the slide passes, we've seen it at Everton on the disallowed Henderson goal, when he just cuts it and puts Mane in behind the defence. That's a lot. Look, he does it. You can do it from deep. Don't get me wrong. He does the one where he gives them the eyes and he whips it into the feet, but it's hitting the attacking player maybe 20, 25 yards from goal. Whereas if he can do that and put them in behind, it's going to create a lot more. It's going to free up Trent and Robbo. And once we get everyone back, and it sounds like we're making excuses, but they can't judge him on what he's done yet. It's the injury has sort of just derailed that, and it's going to take a while till we see the best of him, isn't it?
And we saw them couple of passes, Keith, within a 10-minute frame against Chelsea. It's just in behind. There was a no look that went in behind. They went onto someone's foot, went out for the corner. So listen. We know the guy is class. The guy was on the major tackle that could have finished him. Let's be honest here, lads. He's played 5 games, whether come on a few or started a couple. So we really need to be realistic. Listen, we're Liverpool fans. We can be, we want. We've had success, a lot of success in the last couple of years, and we want people come in and hit the fire burning straight away. Listen, this year of all years, that ain't going to happen, lads. We've seen it, I've often come on here. We do a bit of work and strength and condition, Keith. It's very, very hard to adapt to what's gone on this season for every team, not just Liverpool. Short and pre-season, people are going to get injured more. Everything we've seen the stats, lads. It's not lies. But that getting back to Thiago, we all know he's capable of. Let's be 100% honest here. We've seen he's done it for years at Bayern and as a kid at Barcelona. We've seen it in a couple of short clips at Liverpool. What he's capable of. Yes, we can get overhyped. But I think we're entitled to that because of the player we know he is. But we need to just sit back a bit and remember that he's coming back from a major injury. Even if we were lied to with the extent of time he was out for whatever. Can't believe they didn't tell us that. But now listen, we getting back to it. He's class. We know he's class. Let him settle. And I'm sure when the team starts to piece itself back together, we'll see what he's truly made of.
Yeah, Chris made an excellent point there about, every pass he's doing 5-yard passing with no pressure on him, and we're all like, oh, look at that, that's amazing. And we are guilty of doing that, in fairness. Like, I was hypercritical of Trent at the weekend, saying, it's not there for him. And I look back at some of the highlights, and he hit about 4 or 5 crossfield balls that just 60-yard passes that were going straight into feet or straight onto the chest of the other side of the pitch. And we take that for granted. Do you know what I mean? Now, don't get me wrong, I stand over it. I think Trent has been poor, but not from his really delivery, but it's a knock-on of everything else, having to afraid to committing too much, I think, and not getting the delivery in. And this whole thing with Salah, with the captaincy thing, someone made a comment that could be playing on Trent's mind, and there could be an issue there that he's not getting, playing as many into Salah. There's all sorts of things happening and loads of conspiracy theories. But look, I think Thiago's one that is one to watch for the second half of the season. And if we can get, I'll ask you each actually, what would be our ideal midfield on balance? Now, you can have Fabinho in there as well. What do you think if you were to look at it, if we were starting now, all fresh? Paul, what's your midfield 3 that you'd be playing?
Is that assuming all the centre-backs are fit as well?
Everyone's fit. Centre-backs are fit, so you can have anyone you want in there. Who are the 3 that you'd go with?
Oh, picks
and
itself.
In what positions? In what?
Picks itself. Jordan, Fabinho, and Thiago.
So you're going with Fabinho on the 6. Jordan to the right-hand side, and then Thiago to the left.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so no Genie for you.
He's not going to be there soon.
Well, that's true, but he's still going to pick him, isn't he? He's still going to pick him until the last game. Chris, what are you picking for your 3?
Same 3, but I'd have Henderson and Fabinho as a 2. and then play Thiago further forward, and then you could play. You could play Salah, Mane, and then Jota probably on form at the moment. Can you imagine his passes with their speed? It would cause 90% of teams a lot of problems.
Yeah, very true, very true. And what about you, Gar? How would you line them up?
Yeah, I'll go with the guys. I think it picks itself. I think Genie's starting to check out, lads.
Yeah.
In my own opinion, if he does want to be there, and if they were fit, you have to go what you're going to go with in the future. Them three, I think, for me, picks itself. Henderson's going to cover your fullbacks like he's done for the last couple of years. Was Fabinho is in there to break up stuff, and Keith, I've often said to you on nights, that diagonal pass that he plays, that pigeon wedge pass, as I call it, is unbelievable, lads. And he does it so quick, and the amount of times he catches people out, and we just haven't seen that because he's playing a centre half.
Yeah.
That is
so much fun.
It's a huge advantage for us against sides who have to reset into shape, and he can do that so quick and set a forward or a winger off so quickly. It's hugely missed, and then obviously Thiago just pulled the strings with the front three then.
Yeah, it is. I'll be honest, I'm of the same opinion, lads. I think that's the midfield that you're going with as well, those three bodies, and I think you've got Genie that you can slot in there without losing anything. You've got Naby Keita once every couple of months for a game that he'll come in and play very well. But it's a dig, but it's not really meant to be a dig because he's an excellent player, but he just doesn't do it. We've got bodies in there, but we're just not getting them on the pitch or getting them in the right positions on the pitch, which is the most frustrating thing at the moment. But look, the weekend came and went. I got lashed out for the tweet saying that I'd be happier from a Liverpool point of view with that than Man U. And I got lashed out for that, but I meant it in the sense that, if we were going there, as I think Chris, you might have said earlier, and you've got two midfielders and a centre-back, you have a chance to break the home record that's been going for 60-odd games. You're top of the league, you're on form, everyone's saying how amazing you are, and you can't. I'd be more frustrated from the United point of view than Liverpool. If that, no one will admit that. Liverpool are going to say, we were happy with a home draw. And I'm never happy for Liverpool to drop points. But, when you take the context into it, it's...
look how pissed off we were last year when we drew 0-0 at Old Trafford, where United were not in the best of form. We drew 1-1 there, didn't we? Last minute Lallana goal.
Yeah.
But we were all fuming over that because they were there for the taking. And that was United without really many injuries, but they were form-wise there for the taking. Yeah. And we were annoyed we didn't impose ourselves. So, it's not, red tinted glasses or anything like that. It is, we've been in that situation literally a year ago and we were fuming over it.
You have to stamp on the throat when you can't you, Paul? And you have to land that psychological blow because it's more than just 3 points. It's, it's a psychological knockout nearly. They could have really put us on our arse if they'd have went for it and won.
Oh yeah, totally. And I think, the big word that comes to me through all of our conversation tonight is it's just about expectations.
Yeah.
And the fact is, with the level of injury that we do have, I do think we're going to have to kind of maybe manage our expectations a little bit because I think we got a bit conditioned last season to us just absolutely steamrolling teams and, being 25 points ahead and out of sight and stuff like that. And, after the Palace game, I think everybody was kind of setting themselves up for, here we go again, boys, we're going to run away with it.
Yeah.
And it's not quite happened for good reasons. So you do have to, put that psychological blow in. We were putting those psychological blows in from the very first game last season. If you cast your mind back to the beginning of last season, which feels like a different life away now because of lockdowns and everything else, I've never experienced the beginning of a season that felt so much like a run-in in my life because it was like, we've got to get out and we've got to get ahead of City and we've got to stay there. And if again, I've made this point to a lot of people about where we currently find ourselves injury-wise is somewhat similar to where City found themselves last season with Laporte being out for the vast majority of the season, where they had Fernandinho having to sit in at centre-back and look what it did to their balance and they dropped tons of points. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen to us, but I can understand what you're saying, guys, about, United would possibly feel a little bit aggrieved looking at that in the same way that we were last season. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
The only City though it was it was only Laporte. As he's a good player. Us, within 10 games, it was for us Laporte and Gomez. So if you take City starting to centre backs out for the season, which is at the most Stones and Diaz. You're looking at Laporte and Fernandinho, so they're in the same boat we are. I know everyone likes to do the hindsight things that we should have had 4 centre backs, but you look at United, you take up Maguire and Lindelof, it's Bailly and McTominay. So again, they're in the same boat.
You do it to anyone, lads, and I'm telling you, they struggle. You do it to anyone.
Exactly. No one can take it.
Yeah, if you flip it to City, they've still got into a season with Aguero and Jesus, who are brilliant players, but Aguero is picking up more and more and more injuries. He's on his 3rd injury now, isn't he? Back.
Yeah.
There's no way Aguero's staying fit for the next 20 games. If he does, fair play to it. But it's like me saying Matip's going to stay fit for the next 20 games. You know what I mean? No one would take that bet off me. And I think it's the same with Aguero. So again, if you're a City fan, you're probably going, why haven't we signed a striker?
Yeah.
I know they've got Aki, but they've been throwing Aki in at left back. So
yeah, and that's it. He's covering positions. But yeah, right, Chris. Last season, it was Otamendi, Stones, Laporte and Fernandinho, and obviously Laporte gets injured, Fernandinho goes back and stinks it out, in fairness, and that's the difference. Fabinho hasn't stunk it out. Fabinho's been our best defender.
Yeah, I mean, City had Otamendi or Stones on the bench. He just didn't fancy him. It's not like we're sat there with Gomez on the bench going, yeah, but he's out of form, so we're playing Henderson and Fabinho. We've got like 2 kids.
Exactly, it's a different
a kid and a very inexperienced 23-year-old.
But we'll move on, right, lads, because I want to just say, look at how the league table is shaping up, right? So Leicester at top, they're on 38 points. And if you get down as far as West Ham in 7th, they're on 32. Now we're on 34. Very tight up there, isn't it? And even below West Ham, then you've got Chelsea are in 8th on 29 points. Down to Arsenal are in 10th on 27. Villa are in 11th on 26, but have
17 games in hand.
4 games in hand over Leicester. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a mad the way this season. People are panicking that we'll miss out on the top 4, right? Because we're going through a bad phase now, and I can understand that. To be honest, I can understand people are panicking we'll miss out. It's going to be very tight, but it's a hard one to call. I mean, I'm not worrying about West Ham. I'm not worrying about Villa. I'm not worrying about Everton. I'm not worrying about Leicester, and I come back and bite me. But I'm in Gav's camp on this. I think Rodgers will blow that one. But you've got Spurs there, you've got City, you've got United, you've got ourselves. And that's in the mix. Now, I want to quickly talk about 2 other teams, lads. You've got Chelsea are in 8th, right? On 19 games played, 29 points. Arsenal are in 10th. Same games played on 27 points, 2 points behind. There's a crazy media narrative, isn't there, that like Mikel Arteta is a joker and he's like a poor man's Unai Emery, and Frank Lampard just needs time, and what he's supposed to do with all these new signings. Isn't it crazy the way a narrative around English players and managers can be different to the foreign counterparts? Like it must be frustrating, right? If you're an Arsenal fan or even an Arsenal manager looking at that. It'll come to you. Paul, what do you make of that? Do you think there's a difference in how they're treated?
Of course there is. And it's laughable. It's absolutely laughable beyond all common sense. It just smacks of, Little England, island mentality, English exceptionalism at every turn. Because our players are more expensive than yours, therefore they're better than yours because we charge a Premier League premium. And our former players are all geniuses. And they're all going to go on and become wonderful coaches. And it's just an absolute bag of shite. Especially where Lampard's concerned, because he's one of the most tactically inept, egotistical coaches I think I've ever seen in my life. I mean, we touched upon it last week on the Friday forecast about he's basically at this stage playing FIFA, and it's like the transfer strategy is akin to just buying a load of Ultimate Team cards, and that's what you got. Do you know what I mean? So it's absolutely laughable. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm no fan of Arteta either. Do you know what I mean? I'm very much in the Lee Gunner camp on that. I do think he is the tapas Tony Pulis, but it is also the fact that, again, the narratives are completely different. Now, it will be quite interesting to see in a few years' time if, say, for example, in a hypothetical situation, you get someone like Steven Gerrard taking over at Liverpool. And it would be interesting to see what the media narrative would be then, considering that, you might have other coaches at other clubs, and he probably get hammered, and then other ones won't. So it just smacks of hypocrisy, and quite frankly, it's always been the same.
Yeah, Gar, what do you make of the not even, we won't even say about the media narratives, like, but just the general, lack of. And look, I follow a lot of Liverpool sort of content and Liverpool fans and Liverpool. I don't follow much Chelsea stuff, but surely the Chelsea fans are pulling their hair out at the Lampard situation. Or do you reckon they're actually after boxing themselves into the, it's Frank, he's a legend, he can do no wrong? Like, how would they be taking this?
You're right. I work with one, and he's as loyal as the day has gone to Lampard. And I often look at him and go, "Are you serious?" Like, he's got players there that he can't put into positions. He's it's madness to look. Keith, I've praised Arteta before. He's I've heard really good things about him. My brother's a Gunner season ticket holder, and the players love working with him. He's supposed to be a genius on the training ground. As a coach, I respect that. But lads, you have to look. He's got Rob Holding and fucking David Lewis playing centre half. Like, in fairness, he's doing something right. Even if they're in that,
we've got problems at the back.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, if you look at that and you're going, Jesus Christ, he's doing. Listen, they're not burning bridges, but they're doing all right. But listen, he seems to have fed on it, throwing these young lads in. Smith Rowe is an absolute talent, by the way. He looks like another Grealish to me in the way he just floats around the pitch. Saka has always shown talent. He's playing further up the pitch now, and he's.
They look to have linked up well, don't they, Saka and Smith?
It seems to have just gone so nice. Thomas coming back into the side. Lads, he's getting a tune out of Granit Xhaka, for feck's sake,
Yeah.
So he's doing something all right. Listen, as I said, they're not burning bridges. As for Lampard, Paul, we spoke about it before we come on. He's playing players in position. As you say, it's fancy football stuff for him. Like, he's got a bench full of players there. He signed Werner, and listen, lads, we saw the film, and he can't get a tune out of him. His wingers seem to be picking up injuries all over the place. He doesn't know who to play in the wing, whether it's Pulisic, Odi, Werner. Up front, he's now doesn't know whether he wants to play Tammy Abraham, whether he wants to play Giroud. He's an awful lot of messing going on there. He's got Mason Mount playing, and as I said to you guys, Havertz and Mason Mount look like Lampard and Gerrard all over again. Yeah. And this is a guy who constantly said, "Yeah, we could have played in the same team together." Well, you think he'd have the knowledge to be able to play and suit a formation around both of them to play in that same team, and he doesn't, because Kovacic, to me, lads, is not good enough.
Yeah, it's amazing, like the lack of ideas there and the lack of stability. They bring in and got lauded for bringing in Thiago Silva. Well, I'll tell you, they're wasting the year 36 of Thiago Silva's life, because he's doing nothing. He's there scrubbing around and leading the lower half of the lower reaches of the top half of the table. He didn't sign up for that, and they didn't expect to get it. But that's because their transfer policy was so scattergun and was just throw and something hit, and not much of it is hitting. The keeper looks bleeding pony. There's not much of it hitting at the moment for them, and he's just digging himself into a hole. I just thought I'd bring it up because I found it's it's, as Arjit said a minute ago, but Arsenal were 17th and deserved the criticism. And I'm not saying they didn't. I'm just saying,
but he did change it. But he did change it up, though.
He did change, and he's got them back up. And they're only 2 points behind Chelsea, who people were lauding Frank Lampard, manager of the year contender last year, even though he brought them backwards. And there's just this sort of media boy. So I just thought it was an interesting thing. And the fact that it's so congested up there, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Lads, I want to move on, right? So the rest of the week, we've got, right, Chelsea and Leicester tonight. So Leicester go top with that. United are away to Fulham. City are at home to Villa. Do we expect them to take the points there, City and Man U, to get the points in those games?
You'd think so. The only one who's probably got a chance is maybe the Fulham game, because Fulham have... Actually, I thought Fulham were quite good against Chelsea until the red card. They are at least more turgid to play against. The guy who plays centre-back, is it Anderson? who's the captain.
Anderson, yeah.
That's what they needed. He's a proper organizer of that back three. At least makes them difficult to play against. So they've got a few players that are handy. Unfortunately for them, Reed's suspended for the United game, which I think gives them a little bit of a spark because he's quite unpredictable, as we found out when we played him. He can be a nuisance. If Villa hadn't had 14 games called off and not played a game for, I think it's 20 days now, they haven't played a game, I think they'd give City a game. But I think Villa not playing for 19, 20 days against a City side who are clicking into some form at the moment, I can't see Villa getting anything. They've got the players to damage City and to hurt City. I just think rhythm wise, and we've seen Trent, Manny, and Salah have all had COVID and are all not quite there. If half the Villa squad have had COVID, Christ, their legs are going to fall off within the hour.
Yeah, very true, very true. But look, we're at home to Burnley. Gar, will come to you. It's a must-win game now. It's at home to Burnley. It should be routine, even though they got a draw, didn't they, last year? No, I don't know if that was at Anfield. It was at Anfield, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
It was a small bleeding thing. We need a win now, don't we? We need to get goals on the board and points on the board. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, I'd love to shout out the 3-1 group weekly scoring, but I just don't know at the moment. Listen, at this time, Keith, we start taking scrappy 1-0s just to get confidence, just to get 3 points on the board all the time. It's become like that. If things start to click together, which I think they will. But as I said, it's very hard with what's gone on this season. Teams, are going to dip in and out of form. That's all we need is the front three to click. It didn't the weekend. We played very well the weekend. The back four, albeit a put together back four, 2 centre halves. The midfield have been playing well. They control most of the game, to be fair. But the front three just didn't click. They just took touches. Were allowed to set back. Listen, this is going to be a tough, make no bones about it. These 4-4-2 merchants, they're going to sit back. They're going to try and just bang it long at times. It's going to be hard, lads. So, listen, is it the game where Thiago just, goes out and goes, right here, this is what I'm about, boys. I think we'll get chances. I'm gonna go 2-0 win, Keith.
Lovely stuff. Paul, I'll come to you now. Barry Devaney has a comment there that we need to shoot from outside the box and stop spamming crosses in, which is an excellent point. Yeah. Do you think personnel-wise, Paul, will there be a change that will reflect that? I.e., could you see someone like Oxlade-Chamberlain maybe getting a run in this game? Or how do you think Liverpool will line up? Give me your predicted lineup for this game, Paul.
I don't think there'll be any changes.
Interesting.
I think it'll be an unchanged team because I think if you look at the narrative coming out of Jordan Henderson and Klopp from the United game, they were pretty pleased with the performance level overall. The perception coming out from the club and from the team was that we were just unlucky and it didn't quite come off in front of goal. Like the final ball wasn't quite there, which is possibly what Barry was talking about. And it's one or two too many touches, it's like we're trying to walk it into the net. So I think if we address that and try and get a bit more direct, which I understand the Ox shout, but again, he's another one that I think he loses his head a bit and we look even more unbalanced in midfield, which then can cause us even more problems. What you've got with Thiago, and Thiago needs minutes. And that's what he needs, and he needs miles in his legs, and he needs to get the feel of playing at home and playing at Anfield and stuff as well. So I don't anticipate any personnel changes at all, and I think they'll feel like if they can keep an unchanged team for this one, maybe the next couple of games, they'll try and maybe find a rhythm. And when you're in patches of form like this, and again, we've been very blessed, we haven't had a patch of form like this in a couple of years now. Yeah. So it's easy to, again, get lost in all of that. You've got to just play through it. So I really do think we're going to be unchanged.
So you're going with Shaq really retaining his place in there and Bobby keeping his place. Oh, it's interesting. It'll be very interesting to see how that goes. Chris, what about yourself? How do you think we line up for this one? Can you see changes or do you think it's, as Paul says, it stays as is, changes maybe for the cup?
I think we make one. I think Phillips comes in for. If it was me, I'd put Phillips in for Firmino. Put Henderson back in the midfield with Wijnaldum and Thiago, and then play Shaq and Mane and play Salah through the middle. Yeah. It's not a massive change, but putting Salah through the middle gives them something different to worry about. And if you do like a 4-2-3-1, it brings the best out of Shaq. And if you're going to play Phillips, this is like the West Ham at home game. It sort of plays to his strengths. Now this will come back and bite me in the arse, but one thing Wood and Barnes aren't, he's quick. Yeah. They're physical and they love to battle and go for things in the air, which, to be fair to Phillips, that's what he's good at. That's what he did against Haller for West Ham. He battled with him, I mean, I've never celebrated a headed clearance so much in my life when he headed it last minute against West Ham. Oscar's high five, and but that's what we haven't got. So I think that's the reason I think he might come in. And just for me, Bobby just needs a rest now. He needs to take out the firing line. If Jota was fit, then he would have been took out the firing line already. But at the moment, because his off the ball stuff is just crap, it's not doing the level he should do. I think that then having the knock-on effect of the other two speed lads. Whereas maybe if we're having a Thiago a bit further forward, he can do the Bobby stuff, and he can probably do the Bob stuff very well. Interceptions, clever passing. And to be Shaqiri, while I don't think he was fully up to match sharpness, he does give us a bit of an X factor. He can whip a corner with pace. He's a dead ball guy, and he will sometimes perhaps drives a bit mad, which sometimes burns Klopp's head out. But sometimes he will just go 25 yards and go, do you know what, I'm just going to have a crack. Yeah. So you know what? Sometimes I think we've perhaps missed that little bit of, I'll just have a go. It's only 10 minutes in. Let me have a crack from distance and see what happens. So that would be the only change I might make.
Ox gets the plaudits for being our only shoot from distance, man, isn't he? But actually, Shaqiri is very good at it. Yeah. Something I've mentioned. Thiago can, and he done it there. He had a shot there against Man U in the second half, and it's it's something that we don't see a lot of. It's not how we sort of.
It's not our game, is it?
It's not our game, shooting. Unfortunately, what has us where we are at the moment. But Gar, can you see any changes to the lineup? Can you see, as Paul thinks it's going to be the same again? Chris thinks maybe one change. What are you thinking?
I wouldn't be surprised to see Phillips come in just with the way they play. It's just get Henderson's energy back into the middle. I think we need it, to be honest with you. Even though the midfield were very good the weekend, I think Gini needs a rest, lads, to be honest with you, because he has been, he's been toughed out to where to play nearly all the games. With he looked burned out to me at times the weekend. So I think that could be the slight change. Listen, Shaqiri, for me, done very well. He gives you that element of risk, especially as you say with a long range shot. Listen, if you don't try, you don't get. So we need to do that more, as someone just put in the comments a few minutes ago. I'll just see one change, to be honest. You know what? I just don't think he drops Firmino as much as he should be. I just don't see it happen.
Yeah, it's a strange. So you're dropping Gini for Phillips. You're pushing Hendo back into the midfield.
Yeah, back in the middle.
It's interesting. Captain Sal puts in, give Taki a go. He can't be any worse than Bobby. Not looking to slate Bobby, but it might be something that he could look at. But then Burnley are going to be fairly physical in there, aren't they? Unless he gives, he shakes her up and puts Minamino in an attacking midfield role. But still, it's going to be an aggressive game. It's one I think there'll be a couple of changes for this one. I think he's going to make at least two to the lineup. I think just to freshen her up. Bobby is his favourite, but I don't know.
The other thing with Minamino is he's had plenty of opportunities to throw him in at some point. Well, look, we haven't been scoring goals, so you think, but he isn't throwing him in. Which there is that thought in the back of my head. There's got to be something he's not doing. Whether it's in training or tactically.
But he had a great game. He scored a goal. He was involved and hasn't been seen since.
Well, we all thought he had a great game, but literally the next day, there's an Athletic article came out that said the big thing they weren't happy about was off the ball. He wasn't doing defensively what they wanted to do. He wasn't getting in the right shape, and it was leaving Robertson exposed too much, which they sorted out at half time. So, and that's in a 7-0 win, and they're still not happy with how he's working in the team. So, and people say give him another chance, he'll work it out. But to be honest, that's why they have the training. That's why it took Robson 6 months to get in the side. There must be somebody he's not quite getting that they don't want. Now, admittedly, he's got to. There are circumstances. He came in January. to a country that went into lockdown within 2 weeks, probably sat in a big house in Formby, sat on his own. So there are factors, learning the language and all that, which maybe it's just taking him longer to settle in. Some players do. It was easy for Jota settling because obviously he's already in the country. So there may be that, but I just think there's a reason why he doesn't throw him. There's a reason he doesn't start Origi anymore, because I think he's had enough of it. I think he's in trouble.
It's actually similar to Shaqiri's first game, I think, or his Anfield debut against Southampton. Shaqiri started and had a couple of lovely through balls. On half-time, he hit a free kick, hit the crossbar. Salah came in, tapped one in, gets a goal. Looked decent. Curly finger at half-time because he wasn't doing the defensive side of the job. And, you have to put that shift in. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. It's going to be a hard one. I get what you are saying. Well, Paul's saying go again, so I understand that. But I can get what you two boys are saying about Phillips, because there's not many games you can see that will suit him. And this is one that you think it's going to be a lot of high balls, a lot of headers, and you'd rather see him in there than Reece Williams, or even than Hendo as well. And if you can get Hendo back into the midfield, you're going to cut out a lot of the pressure at the source as well.
Phillips is still a risk, because we saw at Newcastle, bless him, he's not the best passer of the ball.
No.
And if you were Burnley, you'd say, let Phillips have the ball a lot and we'll pick a mistake off. So we've got to find a way of probably hiding that weakness so it's, accentuate his positives. But I just feel like someone like a Wood would have fun with Williams. I just think he'd dominate him, because he's only 19. And I just think a 19-year-old centre-half who's still developing, I just feel like someone like a Chris Wood or Harvey Barnes, who's probably one of the best. Ashley Barnes, he's very good at falling over. And never gets called on it. I think he'd draw Williams in over time. So that's the reason I think Phillips.
Yeah. Kev O'Sullivan says he can't see how Milner doesn't play. Anyone to see a possibility of Millie starting in this one? Or does he...
He likes his sort of games, but I do think Father Time's starting to catch up with him a little bit to be a starter. I do think Millie's still one of the perfect bring on as a sub. For like, if we're 1-0 up with half an hour to go, you bring Milner on. You know what I mean? Or if we're 1-0 behind, you probably bring Milner on just to fire it up or to throw something. As we saw at Southampton, he did more probably in the 20 minutes he came on against Southampton than Trent did. That's because he could do, as you would say, 90 minutes running in 20 minutes. I think that's probably what Milner's role is going to be now. He is probably like United did with Giggs. He's just now going to be the off the bench option. I think he now starts cup games personally.
Yeah. Right. So before we finish up, lads, we'll just get you our prediction. So, Gar, you're going for a 2-0. You sticking with that, yeah?
Going 2-0, yeah.
Yeah, why not? Paul, what about yourself? How do you see it going?
I'm going to go for a frustrating and attritional 1-0 win where Nick Pope's going to have an absolute worldie of a game and we're all going to be pulling our hair out. Well, maybe apart from you. And sorry, I'm very chippy tonight. I don't know what's going on to me. I'm dressed like I'm about to be shot into space. I think it's my last night on the planet. Basically, as I say, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be annoying. It's going to be frustrating. But we are going to come out on top, and hopefully, we can use that to kick on.
Yeah, it's an excellent point actually about Pope. Before we do finish up, he had a great game against us last time. And if we continue this vein of form where we're taking too many touches and not getting our shots off, we're going to make Nick Pope look like Lev Yashin or fucking Reynat Desoyev. He's going to have a field day just doing... Because I find he's a keeper that makes a lot of saves that look great for the camera. Do you know what I mean? He's such a big man.
Yeah.
He does a lot of...
Pete Shilton.
He does a lot of saves that you'd expect are easy, but he makes them look spectacular, which looks, it's a keeper. He's a very good keeper. I do rate him highly. But if we don't take our chances, dilly-dally as we have been doing, he's going to have a fucking field day against us, isn't he? So we really do need to punish them early, I think, to get on top of it. Chris, what about you? What are you going with?
Well, I'll try to be a bit more positive than Buzz Lightyear. So let's try to think. Let's go with... At some point, I've got to think our attacks have got to click into gear at some point. So I'm going to be hopeful that it's Thursday. So I'll go with 3-1.
Lovely, yeah, 3-1. I like that. Some of the shouts in the chat there. We've got Stefan's going for a Gammy 2-1 for the Pool. Captain Sal's going for a 1-0 to Liverpool. Dan J has 3-0. to Liverpool, and he has Bobby, Salah, and Shaqiri. If we can get that up on the screen. Bobby, Salah, and Shaqiri to get the goals. We've got Edward Denham. Edward must be a Burnley fan. He's going for a 1-1 draw. We've got Avo's going for a 6-0, which is in the territory I do be enjoying. But I like Paul Gormley's 14-0 start of our run to the title. This is the sort of nonsense that I'm a big fan of. Let's smash this. Let's get these boys. Rajiv is going for a 2-1 to Liverpool. Red Steve's going for a 0-0 awful performance. Jesus, Steve. What is going on? Kev O'Sullivan's going for a 4-0. Royston's going for a 1-0. You know, there's loads of shouts coming in there. People are confident. Some are more realistic maybe than others. But we do need this win, lads, don't we? We do need to kick on, and we do need to start putting points on the board, because it's getting too tight up there now, and we have to stop feeling sorry for ourselves, stop making excuses, and just start winning games at this stage.
But the key thing is, we're only halfway. I know it's January. Normally January, you're only like 25, 26 games in by now. But because of the condensed season, the season's not as old as you think it is. I think it just feels like it is because it's a game. Every game's on television. You can't really escape it, even if you want to break from football. Yeah. So, imagine if it's like a repeat of the Palace game. What not to do with ourselves?
Yeah, I know. That's it. Exactly. Master Disaster says, play some cling film on Nick Pope's goal line. We all know cling film is the new
tinfoil.
Yeah, it's the Daytrippers are endorsing cling film all over the place. Could put layers of it on his gloves, and then when he punches the ball, take a layer off each time for cleanliness and sanitary reasons. But that's something we can look at. So listen, lads, before we wrap it up, I just want to say tomorrow night I'm back with a scouting show. We debuted the scouting show last week. I'm going to be joined by Grizz, and one of our listeners, Avi, is going to be joining us. Avi Hansra is going to be joining us for that. It's going to be on at 10 o'clock. We'll have one of the lads from 5 Yards joining us as well. It was an interesting show last week. If you enjoyed it, come back to us tomorrow, lads. I think it's going to be good. I know Gar's going to be involved in a couple of weeks on it as well. It's an interesting show that I think is well worth tuning into, just to hear about players that you may not be aware of that could come on the radar. So that's on tomorrow night. Then we've got a post-game show on Thursday. Gav, I think, will be doing that one. And then the Friday forecast, it's going to be an FA Cup special on that. So there's plenty of shows coming up over the rest of the week. So I'll just finish it up now. Paul, thanks very much for joining me tonight.
You're welcome, mate. Thank you.
No worries. Chris, thank you very much. Pleasure as always.
Cheers for having me, mate.
No worries at all. And Gar, my man, thank you very much for coming on.
Man. Thanks, Paulie. Thanks, Christoph.
We've been the Daytrippers. This has been the Midweek Fix, and we will leave it there.